The purpose of this podcast is to talk about the rules of fiction and how you might use them in your reading journal. In a lot of your reading journals, you'll hear me say something like, I want you to try to go deeper and talk more about the rules of fiction. In order to do that, I want to make sure you really understand what the rules of fiction are and how I expect you to use them. So, what are the rules of fiction? The rules of fiction are a set of rules that all, or at least most, books follow. All of the books that you'll read as a 4th and 5th grader will follow the rules of fiction as long as it's a fiction book. Obviously, a nonfiction book or a biography might not follow the rules exactly the same way. Authors use these rules to help the reader make inferences and enjoy the story. In the back of your mind, you know these rules even though you don't know that you know them. They help the reader because there's all these different stories, but they all have very similar ideas going on in them. And as a reader, that can help you. So there are 5 basic rules of fiction. Rule number 1, every book is a journey. And part of that rule is that every journey is a quest. And of course, every quest has a protagonist. This is your main character. Sometimes we'll refer to them as the questor. Every book has a main protagonist. There are a few books that might have 2, but most of the books, over 90%, only have one main character. In order to help us talk about this, we're going to use the story of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to examine the rules of fiction. So, in that story, who's the protagonist? Harry, of course. And who is Harry? Harry Potter is a boy who lives under the stairs in his aunt and uncle's house. He's alone, he feels he's a nobody, he doesn't have anybody in the world that cares about him, and he feels like the only person he can rely on is himself. Rule number 2, every quester has a place to go and a stated reason for going on this journey. What was Harry's place to go? Hogwarts. But not only does he have the place to go, he has that stated reason to go there. So why is Harry going to Hogwarts? To learn to be a wizard. But that's not much of a story, to just go to school and learn. So along the way, rule number 3 happens. Challenges, obstacles, and conflict. Every quester or protagonist will encounter challenges, obstacles, and conflict on their journey. That's what makes the book interesting. What challenges and obstacles did Harry face? One of them is Draco Malfoy, another character that was working against him, sort of the anti-Harry, the guy who hated him. Sometimes we call this character the antagonist. They're the opposite of the protagonist or the main character. Some other obstacles, he had to learn how to cast spells. He didn't know anything about being a wizard before he got there. There was another time in the movie where flying keys were coming after him and he had to figure out how to get past them. He also had to face a 3-headed dog named Fluffy and learn how to play wizard's chess. Of course, he also had to deal with Professor Quirrell, who, as we know by the end, is also Lord Voldemort. So, why go through all of those challenges and obstacles? For the 5th rule, the real reason, change and personal growth. There is always this real reason for the quest. The quester will learn a life lesson and grow as a person. What personal growth did Harry make during his quest? He learned that he has friends, that he's not alone, and that he is important. If you remember, we said that that was really what Harry felt when he was living under the stairs in his aunt and uncle's house, that he could only depend on himself. But he learned that he really does have people who care about him, who will help him. Specifically, I'll use the example of wizard's chess. When he got to this board, he didn't know how to play chess. He had to rely on Ron, who knew how to play chess, to help him. He couldn't do it by himself. And that was huge for Harry. That was a big reason for his journey. So why would we use these? It helps you think more deeply about the story. Instead of just telling me this is what happened this week while I was reading, you're able to start talking about why you think it's happening. Why is the author causing some of these conflicts, some of these obstacles? Because remember, anything that happens in a fiction story is not by accident. The author chose to have that happen. So why? What was the author's purpose? It also helps you to compare your book or series to another book or series. Harry Potter is a really popular fantasy series. Another really popular fantasy series is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. You can compare those two series of books and compare Percy and Harry. Are they the same kind of protagonist? Are they different? What are some of the things that they have in common? What are some of the things that they don't have in common? What are some of the obstacles that they face that are the same? Did they have the same real reason? Well, they kind of did. They were both supposed to grow, but did they grow in the same ways? Did they have to learn the same lessons? Being able to compare one book to another book really starts to make you think deeply about the story and the author's purposes behind the different things that are going on. It also makes you more aware of what the author is doing, which is what we were just talking about. You have to really stop and think, why is this happening? The author could have done anything. Why is this happening? For example, using wizard's chess again, early on in the story, Harry's sitting at the table eating breakfast, and Ron is playing wizard's chess next to him. No real reason, except that the author knew that later in the book, wizard's chess would come up again. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. Ways that you can think deeper about the books you're reading, compare them to other stories, and really get at the author's purpose and the reasons behind why certain things are happening in the stories the way they do. I hope this helps you understand what I'm asking for when I ask you to think deeply and use the rules of fiction in your reading journal. I can't wait to see what you come up with.